Go.
Hi, welcome to 9.3. In 9.3 and 9.4, we're going to talk about other kinds of graphs. And these are graphs that you will see used a lot to persuade people, to show progress, to show what's happening in comparison from one to another. You'll use it a lot in business. You'll use it a lot in your health and science classes, and so that's why we have this little unit. Quiz 5, I think it is over a lot of these kinds of graphs, and so that's what we're going to be talking about in both section 9.3 and 9.4. In 9.3, we're going to be focusing on 3 graphs: a table, a line graph, and a bar graph. Now you probably remember these ever since grade school. Okay, a table graph is just merely where you have the information laid out. Okay, on Monday we had 2, on Tuesday we had 4, on Wednesday we had 5, Thursday we had 3. So you just have some category over here. So this is your category, and then on the other side you have some values. Okay. So these are the categories, these are the values, okay? A table is pretty boring. It's very specific and very exact, but it's not very appealing, and so therefore it's not very persuasive. And so if you're doing advertising or trying to make a point, then you would probably use one of these other forms. The second form that people used is a line graph. And a line graph, if you'll notice, kind of looks like just quadrant 1. Okay, so you only have the y-axis going up and the x-axis going across. Usually on a line graph, your categories are across the bottom and your values are across the top. Okay, so if I was going to make a line graph based on this table, well, my categories were Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So you have just each of your categories down there. And my values, they go all the way from 2, 4, 5, 6, but I'm not going to put those specific values on there. I'm going to count numerically. And so I'm going to start with, say, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. These have to be in what are called intervals. They have to be the same amount between each one. You can count by 1s, you can count by 2s, you can count by thousands, just depending on what the numbers from your table were that you want to illustrate. In a line graph then, I'm going to graph each one of these kind of like it was an ordered pair. So I want to go over to Monday and up to 2. So you go Monday and up 2, and you put a dot, okay? Tuesday said to go over to Tuesday, but then go up to 4. Wednesday would said go over to Wednesday and go up to 5. And Thursday says go over to 3. And then this time they connect them by a line. It's not a straight line, but it's kind of a line or a curve. You've seen this a lot on TV lately where they're telling you about the stock market or oil prices or the coronavirus diseases. We're trying to flatten the curve. This is what they're talking about, how the curve lines, how the line curves, okay? So line graph, you put the categories usually on the bottom, the values in intervals, and then you graph points, okay? The third type of graph that they're going to ask you to be familiar with is a bar graph. And a bar graph is just exactly what you think. Instead of having a point and connecting it with lines, we're going to make little bars, okay? So a vertical bar graph, you would put the categories across the bottom. You would have the values going up the side, just exactly like we did on a line graph. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. But this time, instead of making a point, we would make a little bar. Hence the name, a bar graph. On Tuesday, we would need to go up to 4. Wednesday, we would go up to 5. And then Thursday, we would go back down to 2. Or 3, excuse me. So, you make little bars. That's the only difference between. Vertical means that the bars go straight up and down. If it's a horizontal bar graph, it's just kind of like you rolled it over. This time, the values are on the bottom and your categories go up the side, okay? So I would have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday going up the side, and I would have my values of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 going across the bottom. Now my bars would go this way instead of going up and down. And so my bars would look like they were going horizontal. So a bar graph can either be vertical or horizontal. A line graph is dots where you connect the dots. And if you'll notice, this is much more easy to explain something when I'm comparing things. I can say, oh look, I'm going up, or look, things are getting better, or things are starting to get worse. My sales, the patient's temperature, whatever you're talking about, advertising, it's much more pleasing to the eye. Now, the problem with it is that sometimes these bars, especially if your intervals don't count by 1, it's kind of a little hard. It's like, well, is this really 2 or is it 2.5? Is it really 5 or is it really 7? So they're kind of hard to get exact amounts. If you want exact amounts, you use a table. But if you just want to kind of get the idea, you quite often would use a different kind of a graph. Now, when you have these graphs, your problem, the exercises on 9.3 are going to ask you some questions. And these questions will regularly go around this idea. What was the greatest increase between what 2 days of the week? What was the most increase? Between what 2 days did he have the biggest increase? Or it might say the decrease, or when did it go down, or when was it less, okay? And your answer there will be 2. So if I'm talking about what was between what 2 days did I have the greatest increase, well, I would have to figure out how much did it increase from day to day, okay? From Monday to Tuesday, it went up by 2. From Tuesday to Wednesday, it went up by 1. But then from Wednesday to Thursday, it went down by 2. So between what 2 days did I have the greatest increase? Well, that would be between Monday and Tuesday. You have to figure it out before you can answer the question. If you look at a graph, you can say, oh, well, here's where it changed the most. That's kind of easier, so obviously it was these 2, okay? The greatest decrease, well, that would be when it went down, or when one was tall and then all of a sudden it started getting smallest. So in here, my greatest decrease was between Wednesday and Thursday. So your answer here will always be between which 2 of the categories did it go up the most or did it go down the most, okay? Then you'll also have questions that they'll say, well, in which day or which category was it twice another one, okay? So if I ask between which 2 days was one of them twice the other, well, if you look at Monday and Tuesday, Tuesday happens to be twice as much as Monday, so my answer would be that Tuesday was twice as much as Monday's. So maybe it'll ask you which one was 3 times as much. In this particular case, nobody was 3 times as much. But you have to look at the numbers or look at the graph and try to figure out the numbers and then do the math to answer that question. Then you have the tricky ones, I think. And those are the ones where they say, between how many months, how many days of the week did I do at least 5? Okay? Well, the thing about saying at least or at most is I'm really not asking you lower, which is what you would think the word least meant, or bigger, which is what you think the most meant. It actually means the opposite of it. Okay? So at least really means more than. Okay, so if I want to know which days of the week had at least 5, well, Wednesday is the only day of the week that had that, and it had exactly 5, which wasn't at least 5. So there would be no days of the week where I had at least 5. Okay, if they'd ask you which days, how many days of the week did you have at least 3? Well, if I look, well, I didn't have at least 3 here. Oh, I did here, that's 1. I did here, that's 1. This is exactly 3, so it doesn't count. So only on Tuesday and Wednesday did I have at least 3, okay? Sometimes they'll ask you to add these numbers together to give you a total of how many were over this or something like that. At most really means less than. Okay, so if I want to know how many days of the week had at most 2, had at most 3, then I'm really asking you which days had less than 3. Well, the only day that had less than 3 was Monday, and so that would be the only one that I would count. Okay, remember, this number is not included, and when it says at least or at most, it really means the backwards of it, the opposite of it. The second thing that they're going to ask you to do, which is probably the most significant thing, is the idea of percent of increase or percent of decrease. We've done percent of increase and decrease in the previous chapter. If you got it, yay. If you didn't get it, you're going to have to get it now, okay? Remember that the percent of increase you found by doing a proportion. P, your percent over 100, is equal to the change over what it was at the beginning. And if you'll remember, the change means for you to subtract, okay? And the beginning means which one was listed first. So if I want you to find the percent of change from Monday to Tuesday, okay, then I would look in my chart. On Monday it was 2, and on Tuesday it was 4. So when you subtract 2 and 4, you're going to get 2, because you took 4 minus 2. And then which one was the beginning? They're asking you from Monday to Tuesday. So you look up here in Monday. Monday was 2, and so that's what goes there. What was listed first goes there. Now then, when you cross multiply and find your answer, you're going to have 2p is equal to 200 and divide, and you'd get 100. Okay? 2p equals 200. Divide by 2, and you'll get that p is 100. So your answer is 100%. And since it went up from 2 to 4, it's an increase. So I would have 100% increase. If I was doing from Wednesday to Thursday, please notice that it went down, so that one should be a decrease. But the most important thing when you do percent of increase and decrease is that, remember, to get what goes on the top, you have to subtract the two amounts. What goes on bottom is whichever one was listed first. And then just do it like a proportion, and you'll get the percent of increase or decrease. Good luck.